Hi everybody, it's Friday, it's 8 p.m. UK time. It's time for another gin and tonic, but it's the Islamic gin type that we're talking about. We're coming to you live over the internets. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. Hello, Sir Mr. Rob. How are you doing?
Good evening, everybody, or good morning, wherever you may be. I'm fairly well. You're not so good, though, but you are soldiering through like the true soldier that you are. You grin and bear it.
Yeah,
Stop
it's
nodding great. He
it's
won't tell you because he's, just that sort of guy, but, a little bit of physical challenges. But so wishing you well and hoping for a speedy recovery, but he's here
cheers.
nonetheless. So that's what we talk
Yeah.
about dedication. So,
Of course, yes. And it's actually a pity because it's a gin and tonic show and we're talking about apologists and Islamic apologetics this month. Um, I was on a show 2 days ago exactly on this where apologists have finally had the guts to bring up a show with you know I cannot get myself to say the name really. People without a God belief are for thousands of years have been, I don't know, people have been so scared that they actually invented a name which is atheist and funny things like that. And it's so difficult for me to actually say this word. 2 days ago there was a show where, because Muslims are constantly talking about atheists, they're always making up stories and creating like weird and wonderful things. The things that they associate with atheists and atheism is absolutely magnificent. Oh, hello, Thunderous. He's also made it. Good morning to you as well.
Hello, everybody. Sorry I'm late. Forgive my tardiness. Hope everyone's okay. Hope the audience is okay. I hope the panel's okay. And stops. I'm in a good mood, so don't annoy me.
good
Oh,
evening to
okay.
you,
I'm
sir.
I'm going to keep very quiet and I'll just stay in the background today. Then I'll keep it up. So what actually happened is I've been taunting them for many years, and I said, "Listen, you're constantly talking about atheists. Why don't you get an atheist on the panel? Why are you so afraid of us? Why don't you get me on the panel? And that's it." So now, 2 days ago, they started this. Now, 6 years ago, they also had this from GDM or something it was called, from Ayera. And they had me on twice, promised me they were going to have another session with me, and then they stopped. They never came on again. But lo and behold, 2 days ago, started this. They had four panelists, and this was from the left. It was Imran Hussein, then it was Subur, then it was Hamzat Zotzes, and Hijab. And then you were allowed to, just like we do. They gave you the link, and you could, but they were really like scarce and scanty and quite miserly with their links. Anyway, so you get this, and then you're only allowed to do this if you actually get to see the link. Now, I don't get any privileges there. Okay, I'm totally blocked there. If I go there, stop spamming. So I tried stop spamming too, same result, nothing I could do. And then I went through different accounts that they don't know, and I ended up with my skeptic. No, with I know one of my other accounts, stop spamming something. I got on, but only for 10 seconds. Then the admin in the background kicked me out again. And then I used my skeptic account. They don't know that. And then I was allowed to go on. And it was so awkward. It was so awkward because in 10 seconds before this, Subua smelt a rat. And because I registered at STOPS as stops, okay, I think they thought of this. And Subua then was like crazy typing in the background. Is that stop spamming? I said, yep. Are you these stop spamming? I said, yep. And you want to come on? I said, yep. And then there was dead silence, and you could see, with the expression on his face, because this was happening while I was, in the background. The show was live. Okay, there were other people. They were speaking already, and saying something about atheists and blah blah blah. And then when I got on, and then someone said, "Well, now we have somebody stop saying," and then we all started laughing. And there was another guy on the panel, also an atheist, who didn't know me, and he didn't know what the hell was going on. why are all these guys giggling like little girls now? So then Subha said, yeah, but hang on, is this really you? And then I said, well, I mean, it's very easy to prove. Hamza and I go back, what, 10, 11 years or something. I've refuted everything he's ever done. Imran, I've killed your LDM, your GDM, your everything. And then Subha stopped me saying, okay, we believe you, it's you. Yes, this is you. So this was quite funny. And then it was...
I've posted it in the text chat there, the exact moment when you sort of come in, right? The last link there is you going into this call-in thing.
Have you watched
But again,
this?
yeah, well, I was there. I was sort of working. Remember, I said to you I was working, so I couldn't go on.
Oh, you
but I
kept
might
sort
go
of a
next
half
week.
eye on this. Yeah.
And I was keeping sort of listening in to whatever degree. I might join next Wednesday if they're available and that works. But I posted it all over all the Discord servers that I knew, which is why you got all those Americans coming in, because I had posted this into the Discord servers saying, hey, these guys fancy themselves as Islamic apologists. Do you guys want to come in and have a chat? So that's why you had T Jump, who's sort of somewhat known as an atheist, although I don't think he's got the strongest arguments, to put it mildly. And other people, Ask Yourself, is quite strong. So it was interesting. But let's talk more about it, Stops, I think, in a moment, unless we've got anything else.
Yeah.
Because I think there's some things from that we can talk about that'll feed into, what the show's about today.
Because this is actually a good segue, because what we do is we do exactly that. And this is the reason. What I wanted to do is actually say, because in the end, Imran asked me, why the hell are you doing this? You say that you've been doing this for, I can't even remember how long I've been doing this with Salters, but it must be a good, maybe even 12 years, I don't know. And this is the reason why I'm doing this, because I value truth. I value integrity, ethics, authenticity, the whole thing. There must be something real. I will not accept something, and this is always the example that I give. If I'm a car mechanic, I go and stand next to somebody who wants to sell somebody a dud, I will speak up. I will not stay quiet. Like I did this with, there was some woman selling magnets at some show or something. And I said to a customer, listen, do you know all the facts about this magnet stuff? Do you know that they don't work, they don't do anything? And then she looked at me and she says, are you sure? I said, yeah, well, look, don't trust me, don't trust her. Do your homework, then come back and buy them. And this woman was so mad at me. But this is me. This is my altruistic street. This is me showing people, hang on, if before you go into this, first get all the data on this. Don't just believe them. And this is what I call rational. Okay, so this is why we are doing this. We are giving you the Gin and Tonic show for free, which just gives you information. Now, I'm not gonna say Tsotis is an arsehole or something. That's not what I'm about. I will say he delivered a really shit argument, and then because of this, maybe he lied. Yes, those things, the facts I will give you. And I will say that hijab is a baby intellectually, sure. But the main thing that I'm trying to do is give the facts, why, the background, the reality part. So this is what we do. And there's 3 ways that you can participate. You can come in here, watch us live, comment live. There's a couple of thousand people watching already. So welcome to the chat. Welcome to the Gin and Tonic show. It's so good to always have people there, to know that I'm not speaking into the void, but that there are people listening who are interested in what we are doing, who are interested in Islam and want to know more about Islam. And there are a lot of Muslims listening who are not actually aware of what Islam actually is. And there's a lot of Muslims who are surprised when they hear what we are saying, who then go and check and they say, oh shit, these guys were right. Now what? And that's what I'm trying to do. That's what, I speak for everybody now, I think. This is what we are trying to do. We're trying to help people understand what Islam is. Then you can go and join us on the panel. If you have something that you want to participate in, if you want to share something, even if you want to have a lecture. We had, Clearly Thinking a couple of last week. Very nice, giving us some background on the Islamic Human Rights Declaration in, the 1990 version from Cairo. And anybody can do that, even if you are a Muslim. Even if you are a Muslim, if you have a topic that you want to share with us, come here, talk to us, we'll give you a space, we'll give you a platform. Let's discuss these things, because I want to find commonalities. I want to find not this division, not this you guys are asshole and we are the better people. No, I really would like to have some sort of dialogue with people. And we focus on Islam because I at least know more about Islam than I do about other ideologies. So we don't critique something that we don't know, and we don't attack things, we critique bad ideas. Okay. So we're just trying to be nice people, and we're just trying to give you information on Islam. What we do is we have a system where I provide this intro so that people know where we are, who we are, why we are, because I think it's important that we take a stand on, or we make it very clear who we are and what we are, so that we are not Muslims. And I'm somebody who is completely and utterly, totally without any kind of God belief. I'm one of the people who will say, I don't know about gods in other places of the universe or other universes or anything like that. I just know that the Abrahamic gods don't exist. I'm 100% sure, and I'm so happy that they don't. So that is my personal statement, all right? Then we do the news, then we do some insight into the Quran, into the book itself, and then we have monthly theme. And every month we take a very in-depth look, a more detailed analysis of a specific topic within Islam. Now, we've done reality the last 1 week, we've done slavery, we've done different things. So we compared the Quran to reality the last month, and this month we're going to be looking at apologetics and Islam apologists. And then at the end we're going to be sort of looking or presenting hadith of the week. And that's it. Now, if any Muslim wants to come on here, you're going to get preferential treatment, because it's not that we are just one-sided bashing things. We're not, how's it, Act 17 apologetics. Like, what they do is they always have the Bible in the foreground. And if they are critiquing Islam, they normally show how much better Christianity is. Now, I don't do that. And I want to be very, very clear. I do not have anything to offer, only truth and reality. And maybe that's not nice. And this is why, if you need a God, by all means keep it. But if you value truth, honesty, integrity, reality, facts, data, as much as we do, then there's no reason to go and worship this God in Islam. That's it. Any other thoughts, ideas from the panel?
I think I don't know if there's news, but certainly there's some verses we can go through. And then we've got a relatively short video here from Hijab on why he was rough with quote-unquote cosmic skeptic. And we'll just look at some of the reasoning that's going on here. And I'm sure Thunderous will give his view as well about how the mind thinks here. And maybe we can elucidate or, reveal what I think is very poor reasoning on his part. And then if we're very lucky and we have time, I actually have the exact part where Stops went on to this live stream with the Muslims, and we could always play a little bit of that if Stops wants and we have time for that. But I'll pass it to Thunderous.
No, I'm fine at the moment. And like my co-host, I actually do have a God belief, and I do actually worship the Abrahamic God. So it kind of shows a little bit of diversity for the panel. I think it adds a little bit of a dynamic as well, in as much that it's not prejudiced and biased from one angle. There is a creationist, a biblicist, if you like, who's and an ex-Muslim at that as well, from the culture, not just somebody who converted and reverted, or however the Muslims want to play it. I was actually born into the religion of Islam. I know Islam. I speak the language. And so I've got living experience as to why I stand on this panel in challenging the authenticity of the doctrines and the Book of Islam and the Prophet of Muhammad, assuming he even existed.
Yeah, and I think that's that's part of why you're a valuable member to the panel. Yes, we don't believe in God and you do, but I think we can equally critique other ideas that we think are bad, and you having been a Muslim, you can see how bad those ideas are. And if somebody wanted to challenge you on those ideas versus Christianity, they could do that on the Discord server. But I think that's where you've got a unique perspective, and we can then, I think we're very much aligned in that aspect of critiquing those bad ideas.
Absolutely.
And what I would like to add, I saw again on when was it, on Wednesday, this thing, and I think it's going to happen next Wednesday again, and I don't think I'm going to be allowed on again. It doesn't matter what what account I use. I realized that when I said something, even okay, I don't know how to say this politely. If you take somebody like hijab, he really he can't, he doesn't have a brain to process things. Okay, I'm sorry, but he simply doesn't. He's got a lot of, he's an actor. He just delivers his clown act, and that's it. And that's he's very good at that. I will grant him that. But he doesn't really have the brain to process information, and he's not a very honest character at that. If I then look at Imran Hussein, he's running around now with his presuppositions argument, which, I mean, it takes 15 seconds to shoot down. So, this also doesn't make much sense. Then you have Sabur, who also, like hijab, doesn't understand his this story with what's it, philosophy. Sabur doesn't understand what is going on in biology. So the one who has most of the brain capacity in my eyes is actually Hamza Tsotzes. And the funny thing is that when I gave an example, and I said, well, if I'm being presented with a box and somebody makes a claim that there's a dragon inside, I will not accept it on blind faith. I will go and question this. And this is what I call rational thinking, because I don't blindly accept anything that anybody proposes. And and this is the funny thing, he immediately said, I am misrepresenting Muslims because they believe that the God with the attributes exists. I did not mention their God. I did not mention anything like this. But this is how the Islam virus is sitting in the brain and is manipulating their way of thinking. That they are constantly on the back foot, always thinking that somebody's out to get them. And if somebody really, and this was a really innocuous analogy, immediately thinks that there is some hidden agenda there, that I am misrepresenting Muslims just to make a point, because that is how they work. And because they work like this, they think that we also do that. And I'm sorry, I for myself don't work like that. I'm very, very straight. I don't need any games. I don't need any tactics. I have facts and data, and that's enough. And this is what I want to say to Thunder, for example. One thing I found out is that a practicing Muslim who is convinced that there is this God, cannot go and think like a non-believer, like a person without a God belief. I, as a person without a God belief, can put myself into the shoes. I mean, Rob is a master at the art of playing devil's advocate, because he can put himself into the mindset and say, yeah, but hang on, this is what a Muslim would say. And sometimes it's very challenging, absolutely. And this is why it's so valuable that we are able to do that, but the other way around, you can't. Now, I'm sure that when Thunderous was a practicing Muslim, it was very difficult to get a perspective on the outside world, not using the Muslim glasses, even though he was infected by the Islam virus at that time. But then somehow Thunder got the ability, and I'm still wondering what that ability is, because we are speaking different languages, Muslims and us. And I still do not know how some people like Thunder has managed this. And this is why I've got a huge amount of respect for people who manage this.
Can I just answer that?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, please, of course.
Yeah,
yes.
It's no sort of like skill or ability or wonder on my part. Even though I was brought up as a Muslim, I've said this consistently. I never, for once moment, believed that there was any truth in the religion. There were certain features about it that I could not accept as being reality. For instance, well, I could go into many things, and I don't want to. Maybe that could be
Okay, yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
title of another show. But I never, at any point, ever considered Islam to be real because of the violence, for example, that was contained therein. If there was God, that could not possibly be the God that has any truth to it, because, like I said, but I don't think I'm the only ex-Muslim. There are many Muslims that are actually ex-Muslim, and they're just going through the motion of being Muslim, so they're superficial. And one of the reasons why I say that is because I cannot be the only human being with that kind of brain that can work things out at a very early age. That if there is a truth, this certainly isn't it. That being said, the reason why they stay Muslim or defend Islam is because we see no way out because of the community and culture they've brought in, which could well be perhaps a discussion for another show. So it'd be unfair for me to make out that I'm some gratefully skilled intellect that could perceive its way out and such. The reality is I'm just one of many. Only I did make that stand, whereas others didn't or haven't
Okay,
yet.
you raised some good points, and it's nice that you're humbled about this, but I still have a lot of respect for people who are able to look at this and still have the perspective of an outsider to be able to look in and find the mistakes and the faults. And this is what I mean, come on, Thunder, you have to face it. There's like a billion people who can't.
No, but equally at the same time, there's many hundreds of millions that do. It's just, I mean, if you're brought up in an environment like, say, northern Nigeria or many of the Muslim-controlled countries, there's no doubt that there are ex-Muslims in there. They're not practicing or real Muslims. But what alternative do they have when you consider the pressure they are to stay Muslim and the consequences if they don't stay Muslim?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
that's the point I'm making. I'm not the only person. I lived in an environment in the UK where I had the freedom to make that move, and I took it. Well, as soon as I was legally able to leave home at the age of 16, I took it. I didn't leave home. I left Islam, and I left the rabid racist community as well.
Yeah. And our house poet had it again. The Tao, they have it all. The bearded Muslim, the Muslim with the beard, the bearded Muslim with glasses, and the other Muslim with glasses and a beard. Oh, that is so nice. Thank you.
I think the other thing, though, to point out with that, and hopefully we'll get to it a bit later on, is that there were too many people on the panel. And I pointed out to Stops early on during that discussion. Actually, let me hold that thought. Let's come back to it, because otherwise it's going to be segmented. So if you're in the chat, remind me, or Stops or Thunderous, remind me if we get to the part where Stops comes in to talk about some of the tactics there that I noticed early on before Stops got in. And they changed it a little bit for Stops, but remind me about that, because I'll talk about it then, because it'll be relevant at that moment in time.
Yeah. Okay. What we're doing this week is we're looking at the news. Rob, do you have any news?
I don't actually. I've been incredibly busy with some work, trying to sort things out during this period of time. So I don't. There's not a lot happening. I think the biggest thing that's been in the news, of course, is somebody's life being taken, or at least somebody dying over in the US, and that's caused all sort of drama, at least in the US and here and other countries. But in terms of Islamic news, nothing that I'm aware of that I saw. I mean, I wasn't looking at a lot of headlines or anything, but there wasn't a lot that
Perfect. Yeah.
I came across, to be honest.
And a lot of people are now suddenly hurrying and scurrying to get behind the Black Lives Matter movement, trying to gain some brownie points that, we've been there all along. No, a lot of people were not. A lot of people didn't care about this. A lot of people said, well, it's not really affecting me, so I'm just going to keep quiet about it. And this is why it's been escalating for the last couple of years, and it's getting worse and worse and worse, where more and more black people are being killed in America just willy-nilly, just for the hell of it, because it doesn't matter. And this is something that is horrible. What was telling is that a guy who was killed, he was simply shot because he was jogging. He was black, he was jogging, and two guys thought that he was wandering around some construction site or something, just taking a look, and this was his daily jog, and they killed him. And then the guy who came and who still wanted to help heard him say, "Well, fucking nigger." You cannot do that. That is, we're past that. We are at least 200 years past that. We should not even be thinking like that, because it's another human being. It's a person. It doesn't matter how much melanin is in his skin. We shouldn't care about these things. Now, the funny thing is that now Muslims are running around saying, yeah, we don't have this problem. We don't have racism. We don't have this. Bullshit, you do. Stop pretending like you don't. The word abd that you have for a black guy is also the word for slave. Don't kid yourself. Sorry, Thunders, I just get very emotional about this.
No, quite right. And I have said to you, when we were doing the discussion on slavery, that for some reason, I don't know why it wasn't added as that feature on the month of slavery, but it's also the mindset of the slaves, because the Muslims towards slaves, because many of them were black, and the attitude of the racism of Muslims towards black people, it's endemic. I mean, you've only got to look at the hadith of the Prophet and his attitude towards them, the way he spoke of them. I mean, we could maybe have another show just on that alone, the racism of Muhammad towards black people. I mean, one of the death penalties in the hadith is to accuse Muhammad of being black.
Yeah. Or his attitude towards black dogs, towards black anything. And then, like, they looked at the inside of his thigh and they saw it was white, you know?
Yeah.
The stone in the Kaaba was white until it turned black. Come on, there are so many like hints, so many references to racism in Islam. Yes, today there is no racism in accepting somebody into the group because it's the number that counts. So they're closing their eyes and saying, well, one member more is better than no member, even if it's a black. So this kind of attitude gets them through this. But it is not the way that we should be acting today in the 21st century. Okay. Otherwise, in the news, and I don't know what is going to happen. I don't know, because Trump now is going moggy, totally apeshit. He's dividing the country. He's bringing military into this. He's trying to get the country into another civil war, just so that you know, people are trying to. I don't know. He just wants to stay in power. He wants this not as a democracy. He wants this the same as what Erdogan is doing in Turkey, or like what Putin has been doing for the last 15 years or so in Russia. He wants to be the dictator, and that is what he's trying to do. So yeah. Okay, there's no more news in the Koran. In the Quran. Okay, so if I go to this one here, does anybody remember until where we stopped?
I know it was it 6
10.
or 5? 10, okay.
I thought it was.
Was it
Shit, you know, because at the
cattle?
moment.
Are we in cattle, huh?
Okay, we finished.
Well, you'd have notes,
5.
won't you,
Okay.
from last week, Stops? You had notes from last week, so...
No,
That's
unfortunately not. I was so zonked, I just closed everything, and I normally take notes afterwards to see where we went.
But
No,
you
I
had
don't
you'd written
remember
up,
this.
didn't you, the summary from that? Don't you still have that from last week?
I did not write down anything how far we went in the Quran.
Yeah, but I remember
No,
you had something up on the screen, right, which was your summary of 10 verses or 20 verses or whatever it was.
No, I did
you
not
not
do that
keep
last
that?
week.
Oh, okay.
This is the problem. No, I don't remember this sentence either.
We definitely did up to 10.
Really?
6:10, did you
Jesus,
say?
then
Is it
I was
6:10?
completely zonked because I don't remember that. Then indeed they denied the truth when it came to it, but soon we'll come to the news of what they used to at his mouth. Okay, this one I remember. This is totally gibberish. And then we have very soon how many did we destroy? Yeah, okay, you're right. This one I also remember. And even if we had sent it to you written on a page, touch it with their hands, the disbelievers would say this is obvious. Yeah, okay, cool, but this is obvious anyway. And they say, why was it not sent to him by an angel? Then they would not. I don't know. I don't remember this one. 9. If we
Let's
made him,
take
we
fun
would have made him.
that we got to 10. He's obviously
If
got
we
a clean
made him an
memory.
angel, we would have made him as a man. We would have covered them and watched the cover. We would have covered them in that in which they cover themselves. This is something we had last week already.
Yeah, we definitely did up to 10. I mean,
This is crazy, but this sentence is crazy. Certainly, we have obscured to them what they are obscuring. What the foof is this?
I think that was your response last week as well.
So at least I'm consistent. No, I was totally zonked last week. This is true. Okay.
I mean, it's a trivial point anyway. We are hiding from them what they hide from themselves, or we are stopping them from whatever they stop themselves from.
Yeah. If you remember, I mean, verse 10, both Robs and myself, we discussed this last week, because verse 10 says, mocked were many apostles before you, but their scoffers were hemmed in by the thing that they mocked. And that was to say that people were mocking the prophets. But remember, I was saying they'll fall by their own petard. You know, they set a trap. You know, they set a trap for themselves by mocking the prophets. And that's when you came in, Robs, and made your commentary as well.
Yeah, I remember that verse now.
Okay, yeah. This shows you what a bad condition I was in last week. Okay. All right, 11. Travel through the land, then observe how was the end of the denial. Oh, come on, people, please. Can somebody give me a reasonable book? Say. Now, if it says say, that means he's talking to Muhammad, okay? So Muhammad traveled through the land, observe how was the end of the deniers.
So basically, you know, potentially one could say something like, you know, observe the result of these people who denied me. What happened to them? There was like a pitiful end. It was a bad end, something that you as a Muslim presumably would not want to happen to you.
Okay, but they would. Jalalain says the same thing what you are saying. Okay, say to them, the people travel in the land, see the nature of the consequence of the deniers, how they were destroyed through chastisement. Perhaps they will take heed. But nobody is being destroyed. Nobody has been destroyed. I mean, yes, Muhammad went and destroyed a lot of people. He destroyed caravans, he destroyed settlements, he destroyed a lot of things. But that's not the same as, or maybe this is what they're saying. Observe how was the end of the deniers, because they attacked everybody who was not a Muslim. So maybe this is this. I don't know.
Well, I think it's just the result. Go and observe the result and see how bad it was, with the inference that you wouldn't want that, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But does it make sense to say it like this? Would you have a better way of saying
Abbas
it?
says that, right? Ibn Abbas in the Tafsir, I'm just looking now, says the nature of the consequence for the rejectors, which is kind of what I was thinking, yeah.
Unbelievable. Okay, 6:12. Let me say, so he say, to whom belongs what is in the heavens and earth? To Allah. Okay. So everything belongs, heavens and earth. What is heavens? Nobody knows. So he has decreed upon himself mercy. He has decreed upon himself mercy. He will surely assemble you for the day of resurrection, about which there is no doubt. Well, sorry, there is. Those who will lose themselves do not believe. People, he has, okay, to Allah, he hath inscribed for himself mercy. What does that even mean?
I mean, if he's the all-merciful, then presumably he would dispense mercy.
Yeah, but he doesn't have to order himself to be merciful if he is mercy.
Yeah, I guess maybe this is a roundabout way of making a trivial point. If you are merciful, then you would dispense mercy, you know, which is obviously trivially true, but it's not informative.
And you can't.
Rhetoric.
No, it's because you can't decree it on yourself, can you? It's something you decree.
Exactly.
You know, it's something, if you decree it to somebody else, when you have it to give to somebody else, you don't give it to yourself.
He's all powerful, all powerful, and I am ordering myself to be all powerful.
Yeah, I think that's not a good way of putting it, but I think what they would probably push back and say is, well, really, what it really means, which again, make it clear. But again, maybe it's crystal clear in Arabic and just complete gibberish in every other language, or at least badly written in every other language, which doesn't bode well for it being a book for all time, because not everybody's going to read Arabic. So that's a bit of a problem. But presumably he is saying, I am X, Y, and Z. And from the human perspective, they're claiming that he's inscribed this for himself, i.e. that he said it for himself. But there's certainly better ways of saying this.
Yeah, the
That's
thing
the
is,
whole point.
if it was written in Arabic, as an example, then it would have to be gibberish in the first place, because when you're trying to translate it, there is no way you can not translate. If it was written in one way in Arabic, and you translate, if it was transliteration, that still would make sense. And translation, well, I guess what I'm trying to say is you can still translate it in a way that it makes sense if it's coming from another language. The only time that you can't translate it or can't transliterate it is not when there isn't the word equivalent. For instance, deja vu or coup d'etat. Those can't be translated because you don't have word for word or even close words to transliterate or to translate. So you adopt the foreign language into your own language. Yeah. In this sense, if you're trying to translate something from Arabic, right, it says he has decreed upon himself the mercy. Well, that must be what it says in Arabic, because if it's saying something else, then it would say something else, because you will just translate it or get as close as you possibly can. And we do have the English language variants to translate it in a way that it does make sense. Like he is decreed upon himself to, or is decreed to give mercy to other people, or his decree. I don't see why the word decreed is there. It's almost like it's been put in there to make it sound holy or religious, or that God is some kind of majesty here. It should say something like, if it was religious, that he would bestow mercy upon his subjects. That would be an easier way of saying it. If that's what he's going to do.
It's a different way, yeah, and then it would make sense. But look at the last sentence.
Those who have lost themselves, then they do not believe.
You're being reassembled because you've died. All right, you're dust. Sometimes, depending on the ground that you're in, some bones will survive, sometimes not. So now you're being reassembled down to your fingertips, or down to the finger prints, according to some apologists. And then you are reassembled, and if you can't, in other words, if he fails to do that, then it's your fault. Or how do I understand it? Those who have lost themselves, they do not believe. What? Okay, I'm sorry. I really don't understand this.
I think again, it's what he's trying to do is that he's trying to put a burden on the audience that if you do not want to be this kind of person, if you don't want to be someone who's identified as lost, then you would stay where you are. He's trying to keep the audience captive to what he's trying to say.
Yeah, but then you were created this way.
I know that, you know that. But this is the Muslim audience we're dealing with.
And you are telling me for 1,000 years they did not see this?
Or they did see it and they were in fear of doing something about it. We have to remember the punishment for leaving Islam. I mean, the great war that started when Muhammad died was the war of apostasy, and the very first war Islam had. So are we to be surprised in latter years that people had a fear that if they leave Islam?
Good point. Yeah, it's true. It is they who have lost their own souls. How can you lose? How the fuck? I mean, a soul is supposed to be attached to a person. Okay, it's supposed to be not part of the brain itself, not physically. So how can you lose that? It's like losing your shadow. You can't lose your shadow.
I think in a religious context, what they're trying to say is that he's irredeemable. You know, he's lost. He's a lost cause. He's irredeemable now, like a lost cause, irredeemable.
And then they do not believe, or that will not believe.
I think Rob's made some point in chapter 2 when we were discussing the Quran that sometimes things were put in such a way to keep the rhyming going, to keep the rhyming.
Maybe that's the case here as well, because it doesn't make sense.
No, it's not
the wrong way around.
Yeah. So I think I'll agree with Rob's on that one, that sometimes these things don't make sense because It's the rhyming side of it that's more. That's the flow in the Arabic, the rhyme.
Because it should be, logically. Then they don't believe, and then they lose themselves, but not the other way around. Okay, it doesn't matter. I guess the more I read, the more I despair. Really, I mean,
Well,
give a Muslim a Quran, and he's an atheist. Really.
then it's kind of like, well, this is why no one's ever met the challenge of produce a surah like it. I mean, who the bloody hell speak bad language like this?
Well, now we have the Surah COVID, so this is all done. Okay, to him belongeth all that dwelleth. What belongeth all that dwelleth in the night and the day? For he is the one who heareth and knoweth. To him belongs that which reposes. What reposes? Okay, to repose.
Just basically saying he owns everything because he's the creator. Is a short version of that.
Yeah, but to me, repose means to rest. Isn't it?
I'm not sure. I'm not that familiar with that word. I think it's just that he's the creator, he's the main guy type of thing. As if we don't
For
know
him,
that
whatever
already.
dwells in the night and the day, he is all hearing, all knowing. Well, is he all knowing? Because, by the way, I left the group of these liberal Muslims because it was just getting too tedious. Because all knowing, they will say, no, this is not all knowing. This is just that he follows everything that is logical. So it has nothing to do with all knowing. Oh, goodness.
You've got to be careful
Okay.
going down
And
that
then
route, right? But anyway.
14 say, this is again to Muhammad then, is it other than Allah I should take as a protector, creator of the heavens and the earth, while it is He who feeds and is not fed? Indeed, I have been commanded. Okay, tell the people, I, Muhammad, have been commanded to be the first who submit and do ever be of the polytheists.
Right. So if he's the first, in what sense is he the first? Is it right up until Muhammad there hadn't been anybody up until Muhammad, or is he
What about
basically?
Adam?
Well, that's my point. Because I was then going to say, well, in what context is he the first? Is he the first up until he was around and became prophet? That means all the other ones were not first or were not monotheistic, or is he basically saying, I am at the forefront of all humanity? I am the first in the sense of I'm at the forefront of everybody. And I
I'm
think,
better.
yeah, I think Muhammad, or this is where Allah or Muhammad via Allah is saying to the audience, I am at the forefront. And the reason why I say this is because you notice in many texts in the surah ayahs that we've come across, Muhammad and Allah are like a 50-50 partnership.
Yeah.
And so, and if people are already biting onto that, Muhammad saying, I am at the forefront of all humanity, which is what basically is being said here, that would fit the narrative.
Okay, this
The
is highly
interesting thing is-
problematic in my eyes.
Yeah, the other thing is that Ibn Abbas says he is the first to embrace Islam. Oh, Muhammad, I ordered to be the first to surrender unto him, the first to embrace Islam. It is said that this means the first among people of his time to worship sincerely and declare Allah's divine oneness.
Well,
So they're trying to qualify it there, right?
yeah, but the thing is, they're trying to qualify that, but that means every other prophet that's walked before him have been false.
Or that they've got new criteria now for being a Muslim. Because they want to claim all the previous prophets were Muslims, but obviously they didn't meet the same criteria as Muhammad, right?
Yeah, but they cannot meet the criteria unless the criteria was given to them to meet in the first place, surely.
Yeah, which they didn't have. So it's
Yes,
like post hoc reasoning, right? Okay, yes, they must all have been prophets. We can't deny that, but they were actually Muslim prophets, because if they were prophets from another, sect or another religion, that would be problematic. So we're going to post hoc reason somehow that they are Muslim prophets, but that Muhammad got all the message and he's the first to really truly embrace it, and the others did, but maybe not fully, or that it wasn't recorded properly, or some other sort of post hoc reasoning you can come up with to say he was the first to do it properly, quote unquote.
Yeah, but the thing is, first of all, 123,999 prophets have already gone before Muhammad, so that would mean all those messengers and prophets have got it wrong, or Allah didn't feed them correctly, so it's not their fault. They can only deal with the limited information that Allah's given them in the first place. So who's at fault there? Allah or
I
Muhammad.
think they might claim that no, they were following it, but there was corruption by people recording it, and or maybe that the prophets were not perfect, but at least perfectly tried to follow what God said. I mean, they could come up with something there in their view to try and rationalize it. Not that they weren't perfect or they didn't give true messages, but that those messages have been corrupted over time. That's maybe what they might try and say.
Okay, that's fine. We know the Muslim default is corruption of 123,999 prophets that have gone beforehand. That's the only default they can have to justify their religion in the first place. That's fair enough. But I'm still of the opinion that Muhammad is here putting himself at the forefront as opposed to
Well,
all
it is
the
in a sense, yeah.
Yeah, because that would, assuming it did exist, because he kind of molds all the other prophets in his image, or they are being molded in his image rather. You know, he kind of twists the stories to fit the situation that he's in, to make it look as though if it happened to them, it happened to me, or if it's happening to me, it happened to them too. You know, so I'm the greater fulfillment of the struggles that they had in the past. I'm the greater fulfillment.
Yeah, well, he has to bring something new or different. Otherwise, he's just repeating what others have said before. So you've got to inject something there to make yourself unique or different, right? Presumably that's the idea.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
but also, you're both wrong, because what we saw when we were looking into history, that it was actually Khadija who first
Just make
accepted
yourself a
it.
bit louder, stops you a little soft there.
Oh, sorry, yeah. Is that better if when I talk like this?
There we go. Yep.
Oh, hang on, I can
Sorry
boost
to just
the gain a bit. Okay.
to change your comfort there.
Yeah, yeah, because I'm lying back. I got my feet up on the on the next chair just to relax the broken parts of it. The thing is that it was actually Khadija. Well, this is what we saw in the standard narrative. She accepted Islam before Muhammad did, because he was still doubting. He still didn't know. He wasn't sure. He still said, I don't know, and is this, and blah, blah, blah. So she actually accepted this before he did. So
Yeah, but I already gave the talk on that, didn't I? I've got the notes for that. Muhammad is not the true prophet of Islam. Khadija is. She's the
yeah,
true
exactly.
prophet. Because without Khadija, there would be no Islam.
Yeah.
Because she knew everything that was happening to him while he was going mad, or thinking he was going mad, or thinking of committing suicide. She even knew the name of Allah. She knew the personality of Allah. She knew the direction Allah was going to go in, and she knew who to take Muhammad to get him verified.
Yeah. So it shows you that everything is just man-made. I mean, it's just... Okay. 15. Indeed, I fear if I should disobey my Lord, the punishment of a tremendous... Yeah, okay, this is the same old story. You need to be shit scared, and if you don't obey me... No, you have to obey me or else. That's it. Comments?
Just to repeat.
16, he from whom it is averted that day, my goodness, granted him mercy, and that is a clear attainment. If Allah should touch you with adversity, there is no remover of it, except him. There is no remover. And if he touches you with good, then he is over all things competent. Okay, so if something goes wrong with you, then he's incompetent.
No, it's your fault, right?
So if something is wrong, it's your fault, and if it's right, then it's his fault. Okay.
I mean, there's so many different ways. You can keep saying it in different ways, right?
Yeah.
And that's all it is saying the same thing. It's like rhetoric, saying the same thing in 15 different ways, as if that makes it more powerful. It does help people. I suppose rhetoric is useful for those whose minds aren't focused on the substance or the detail. If you just like to hear something you already believe, then rhetoric is like hypnosis. It's like a drug. It'll keep you floating along, take you by the nose metaphorically, and just pull you along. But if you listen like us, it's just a repeat.
Yeah, I didn't know this. There's a study that confirms this, where people were given certain sentences, and if something, even if it was wrong, was repeated, then a question relating to this half an hour later came up with more corrects than false. Muhammad hijab dismantled you.
Well, we'll get to that hopefully if we can get through these verses and the other thing. We'll get through that and we'll see whether that's the case. Because all we have to ask this fellow is exactly what did Muhammad dismantle him in? Because that's
Yeah.
just a vacuous claim until he can
But
give
it
something
sh- yeah,
specific
but
and
it
reasons why. But
shows you.
hopefully we'll get to it.
It shows you how blind people are. It doesn't matter what he says. It's the way that he says it that gives off this certainty that he has actually made a point when he hasn't. And that's why I did not even go along with his game. And people still have this idea that he made something, he did something. He didn't. He just threw a temper tantrum. That's okay. He is the subjugator over his servants, and he is wisely acquainted with all. Okay, great. This is exactly what you're saying. This is now the same sentence 5 times in a row, just saying the same thing in a different way. Say again, Muhammad, what thing is greatest in testimony? Allah is witness between me and you, saying that and this Quran was revealed to me. I might warn you hereby, and whom reads testify that there are the deities. No, there are no other gods. Say indeed, he is but one God. He is but one God. What is that? He is but one God. If there is only one God, you don't have to say he is but one God. You know, I don't get it. There's only one God, and then you have to say, well, there are no gods but God. Well, it doesn't make sense. This is illogical. And indeed, I am free of what you associate with him. Well, if there is only one, you cannot associate anything if there is only one.
How can Allah be a witness between Allah and him?
Yeah.
That's
and
like
a
me
witness
being
for
a
himself.
witness between me and you having a conversation. Well, I mean, yeah, but that's trivially true. But then anybody is a witness to anything where they're involved in something. Tell me something that is informative.
But it sounds like he's trying to say like he's his own witness. I mean, that's never going to run in a court of law. Yeah, I testify that I am my own witness and I didn't do
Well,
something.
unless you're the judge, jury, and witness and
there it is,
executioner, right?
And what is the most weighty thing in evidence? Me. Oh, come on, guys. Can't you do better than this? How can anybody tell me that this is not man-made? This is feeble. This is really poor. It's badly written. And this is what thing is most weighty in evidence? What does that mean? And then Allah is witness between me. Yeah, of course. And the Quran hath been revealed to me. Hang on. This Quran has been revealed to me. Me is Muhammad. So I, Muhammad, this Quran has been revealed to me by inspiration that I may warn you and all whom it reaches. Can you possibly bear witness? Yeah, and then it goes to the answer. Okay, so there's nothing. Yeah, it's just the old plain stuff. Okay, let's take 10 at a time. Really, I'm tired of this. Those to whom we have given the scripture recognize it as they recognize their own sons. Those who will lose themselves and hereafter do not believe. Okay, this is
just do that one. Stops. I mean, just let's do 10 and move on, shall we? Or do you want to do another 10?
No, let's stop this. I'm tired of this bullshit. Really, this is.
If you want to take it as a suggestion, if you want, I mean, we can alternate 2 reads every week. I don't mind reading 10 or 15 verses myself.
No, I just need to find the oomph again to go and do this in advance, because I always did 10, 20 in advance and sometimes even 30. And so I just need to find my old MO to do this.
I did 20 today, but I came on the show and realized it was in the wrong book.
What was it? The
I think the Quran sounds all so familiar. I was reading, I'm thinking, I'm sure I read this, and then I realized, well, it sounds like that anyway. It sounds all the same.
Okay, and with that we come to the theme of the month, which is apologetics, Islam apologetics, Islam apologists. Now, I used to have a series only focusing on apologists, and unfortunately this was shut down because Muslim apologists don't like hearing the facts about what they are saying. Now, the way that it works is that you get people who are Muslims who will wake up in the morning and take a shower, go to work, do whatever, and they will not really care about things. And then on a Friday, when their buddies go to mosque, they will go to the mosque, they will go next to them, stand next to them, do their kotaos, bang their head on the floor, and then have a chat, go for a cup of tea, and then they will go home and then spend time with the normal buddies. Then you get the kind of Muslim who says, no, 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 I need to take this more seriously. They will wake up in the morning. The first thing they do is they fall out of bed straight into the prostration position. And they will pray 5 times a day, and they will actually fast during Ramadan, and they will go to the mosque and follow what the Imam says, and he will follow what the khutbah is, whatever is being said there. Then you get the kind of Muslim who not only does this, but actually goes and studies the Islamic texts, and who goes and tries to find out every single little detail that ever has been written or said or whatever about Islam. And then you have the fourth type, who don't really give a flying wind channel or whatever about Islam. They don't care about praying, they don't care about fasting, but they will pretend that they do, and they will make a living out of this. So there's different types. Just like there are different types of people everywhere. It's just that their job is to sell something that is called Islam. Like Hamza Tsotus, I once said, if you wouldn't be doing this, you would be selling washing machines. But he's not selling washing machines, he's selling Islam. So what he's trying to do is he's trying to make Islam look as good as he can, even if it is an inferior product. And this is what apologists do. So there are different apologists doing different things, having different ways of selling the same identical product. And that's all that it is. Does anybody have any other definition or ideas on what apologists are?
I think it's just, in this case, Muslims trying to make sense of the Quran and then give reasons or defend what's said in there for their gullible followers to sort of sleep happily at night. And so what I've certainly realized over the last few years is that most of them, and we might have one in the chat, we may not, don't really understand what's being said. But as you pointed out, as long as it's said with conviction, they will feel convinced that something substantial has been said, even if they don't understand it. So I think with that in mind, let's go through it, where you join here and we'll go through your conversation with us. We'll stop it along the way, and you guys just shout out when you want me to stop it, or I'll stop it as I go along and notice things, and we'll point something out, right? You might even say, hey, stop, maybe you could have said this or that. But in particular, we'll look at the apologists and what do they say when confronted with something, or when they're asked to defend something or respond to something. What is it they actually do? Do they say anything substantial? And if so, how do we respond to that?
Okay, and if anybody in the chat wants this, just type 111 or something like this, something that you can type quickly. I'll be watching the chat because I was there, so I don't need to pay that much attention. So if there's anything that you want us to stop on, then go and yeah.
Well, again, I mean, this fellow's, we're going to play the video now, so let's bring it up on screen.
Who's doing this? Abdul Lubda, what the fuck is wrong with you? We haven't even watched it. We haven't seen it. We haven't done anything, and you're already shouting out. And I say, okay, let me say this slowly. If anyone in the chat wants us to stop the video, type a 1 or a 111 or anything that I can see and pick up, and we will stop the video. Okay.
Obviously, there's a bit of a lag. It's probably, I don't know, 20 or 30 seconds, so we might miss that stops.
No.
Maybe they can type in like a keyword or something like that to get us to focus. So if we go past something that somebody goes like, he said da-da-da, like a short quote, then you can pick that up in the chat, because we've got lots of ears listening, so it might be helpful if they point us to what it is they want us to comment on. Otherwise, we'll do it between us, and we'll stop and start
And
it as we
somebody
go.
go and slap Analyze Dunya.
I'm not sure how long he's on the panel. We'll see, probably 10, 15 minutes, maybe. I'm not even sure if it was that long. We'll see.
Just to explain, remember, I'm blocked. Okay, SC Dawa is a channel where everything that I say and do is haram. Okay, I'm a hater. You're not allowed to see anything from me. I'm like anything. I cannot do anything there. I cannot comment. I cannot go into the chat and say anything. Nothing that I do that ever appears to other people. My stop spamming too, because then I switched to stop spamming too. Also blocked, completely blocked. So everything that I do in SC Dawa is blocked. So and because I made a video or 2 or 3, I can't remember, and they inundated me. This is one idiot. Okay, he's got several channels. He's got SC Dawa. He's got like 5 SC Dawa channels. And this idiot actually goes around and he's angry with anybody who refutes him. And I did this quite badly. And I think the worst, the one thing that he didn't like is when I said 286 doesn't have a middle sentence. He doesn't understand that even numbers don't have a middle part. And because I was quite, it's called supercilious, okay? Because I think I mocked this. He hated me, and he gave me, I think, 3 copyright claims in 2 weeks. So they closed down my channel immediately. And I then appealed this, and they put the channel back, and they repealed everything. The problem is, even though he posted false copyright claims, was not in any way reprimanded. And this is the big thing with YouTube. You can abuse the system, but even if you abuse it, there is no negative consequence for you. I think the consequence should be if you do that, then your channel gets blocked. If this is shown that you are abusing the system, but they don't do that. So anyway, so I had to use different IDs and different things, and you can see 10 minutes before this, I was actually on the show already. But then they kicked me off when they realized it was me, because remember, in the background, you have a moderator sitting there, and the moderator is looking at who is actually joining, who is there, and who is doing what. Yeah, isn't that me?
Could be. Let's watch stops anyway.
It doesn't matter. So I had to use several IDs, several accounts before I was able to get there. And the other thing is, because I was on a different browser, I was panicking because this browser didn't have all my IDs stored. So I always had to go and look up what was the next ID, with what was the password, what was this. And this had to be done like in milliseconds before everything worked. So I was really panicking, let me tell you. Okay, so this is then when they finally said, okay, and this was the awkward moment. I hope you're catching that. Look at the face of Hamza when he hears my name.
Here we go.
No, there's no audio. Okay, while you're sorting that out, the worst thing is they're constantly grooming themselves with the beards, like this hijab guy. He's constantly with a toothbrush. I mean, he seems to be living in his car and he's brushing his teeth while he's on on an interview or screen or something like this. I mean, I find that incredibly rude. But what the fuck? And you can see at the background in the bottom, you can see 10 Canadian dollars. And I mean, Samir, I love his style. Okay, now they blocked him. They didn't like him. They didn't want him there, so they completely blocked him. So to get the message across, he spent 10 Canadian dollars as a donation to write a message. Why the hell am I being blocked here? And this is, this thing. So this is such a nice gesture. I think I love this. I mean, this shows style. This is the way to do it, to mock the people over there, to show, look, I don't care about 10 Canadian dollars, just to get the message out there, just to get the truth out there. So you see what kind of idiots you actually are. I love it. I love it to absolute bits what Samir did there. Okay, do we have audio now? No. Shit. Should I go try and do it? Or Thunder, can you hear something?
I can hear nothing.
Can you guys can't hear this?
No.
Can other people hear this in the chat? Can you guys hear this? Because this is supposed. Let me just stop it for one moment here. I'll just bring it back in 1 sec for me. Let me just add this back in here. I mean, I'm pretty. Maybe I didn't hit the share audio button. Apologies. They're not saying anything here yet. So let's just go from here, which is you just said, is it the real stops? And you said yes, 10 years, and they all started to laugh.
I can tell you everything is said. No,
I have to do it.
Holland and what I have repeated, that should be evidence enough. Imran, I've killed his entire LDM, his GDM, his everything.
That's it. That's what's coming.
Guys, what are you doing? You're putting people to sleep. You are doing what you are doing every day, and that is selling your dawah. We know this stuff. The question is atheism, I mean, what a stupid word, what a misnomer. Is it rational? That is the question. And it doesn't help what Hijab is doing, his usual thing with his shifting the goalposts and then throwing out some words that hopefully nobody understands. That is not the way to do things. Hamza, you've been on the Magic Sandwich show. You've seen how people do this and how not to do this, and you're doing exactly how not to do this. Come on, guys. You should have been on the Gin and Tonic show a couple of times and seen how you go and handle people, how you let them speak if the topic is the other person and not you. Okay. E-Jump has done a wonderful job of defining rational, and it's about, clear thought. It's about reasoning. It's about logical, sensible. And if you go irrational, it's even better, because then it's deprived of normal, and I'm reading this off here, deprived of normal mental clarity or sound judgment, not in accordance with reason, utterly illogical, not endowed with the faculty of reasoning. Now, excuse me, if somebody gives me a closed box, I have no idea what's in it, and he says, in here is a fire-spitting dragon. Is it irrational to go and say, excuse me, do you have any reason why I should believe that?
Let me just stop for 1 second. I think one of the things that stops could have done as well, because this is for everybody, and it's easy to look at it afterwards, right? Is define what it is to be irrational. And I think if you go and watch the whole of this, you'll see that somebody came in a lot earlier. I'm not sure if Stops was on at that point or was listening, but there was a guy called Ask Yourself. And to me, and I agree with this, right? They would need to show that there is a contradiction for something to be irrational. It's not just that it's unreasonable from their point of view. If they're going to claim that atheism, quote unquote, is irrational, they need to show a contradiction. In other words, there's something within atheism, and again, they'd have to define what atheism is, which is simply the disbelief or the lack of belief, depending on which atheist you speak to, of God. Now, there's some implications to that, which is obviously either you obviously believe in a non-God world, but there's a wide range of varieties of, quote, non-God worlds. Now, the most common is naturalism, but you have idealism, dualism, monism. So there's quite a wide variety, and you'd have to ask the particular atheist you're speaking to, what is it you believe? And they haven't done this. They haven't defined it. And Stops is kind of defining irrationality here, or rationality and its converse. But I think it's, for them, it's a case of, and I did sort of type this to Stops at one point, is get them to define what irrationality is and why they think atheism is irrational. And if you put in the clause that, hey, it needs to have a contradiction for it to be irrational, now the burden is on them, which I think it is, because they're asking the question, is it irrational? And you don't normally ask your own worldview, is my worldview irrational? You take it to be rational until somebody shows it's irrational. Now, you could be believing it for bad reasons, and if somebody shows that to you, then you could say, okay, hey, you know what, that's I started to believe this for bad reasons. But I do think
this later.
Yeah, so I do think that getting the definitions down in the beginning and asking them, what do you mean by irrationality, I think is important. But Stops is doing it in the sense of doing the dictionary at the moment. By the way, if Thunderous or Stops, if you want to say something, just speak loudly so that you can hear, just so I can hear you, and just say, stop, I want to say something or whatever, because I'm listening to the audio as well from the video.
Okay.
Do you have any evidence to back up your claim? How is that irrational? It is totally and only rational. It is the only response that you should have if somebody gives you an empty box with a humongous claim, that you then ask, what is going on here? Okay, let's have a discussion. Excellent. This is what we want. Yep, Hijab, come on, go.
Just a quick thing, Hamza, why don't you respond to the rationality thing about T-jump?
This is a pity because he's interrupting the flow, because we're just starting to get into it, and now would have been a good moment to continue this, but the whole, every sort of, it's like the takeoff run, and you've just reached the end of the runway, you're just about to take off, lift the nose, and he says, whoa, 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 hit the brakes, stop, abort takeoff, because now we want to discuss something else. And that was so unfair, I thought.
I think the other thing that I've pointed out is I think there were too many people on the panel here as well. I think having less people on is a better idea, because then you can have that backwards and forwards and it doesn't feel like people are being left out. I think there were too many Muslims on and not enough people challenging them, so that you can have this back and forth. But at least you got a few minutes back and forth, whereas before this, and that's what I wanted to say, and I'm reminding myself now, if you go watch this whole video, right, before Stop Spamming came on, there was very little backwards and forwards. It's almost like they took a question or a statement, and then each of them, because Sabur was the moderator, so he didn't actually input himself. He got Imran, Sortsis, and Hijab to respond. The other guy is an atheist, by the way. So there were four of them, with one moderator being Sabur, and the other three were doing the thing. But in the beginning, it was a case of taking a question, them making a statement, and then each of the Muslims answering, and then oftentimes the person that came on wasn't given the opportunity to rebut that sort of stuff. So it looked like somebody had given a question or made a statement and the Muslims had rebutted it, and that was the final say. And of course, that isn't the case. And I think you need more of an interaction so that somebody can respond and there's a backwards and forwards.
And that was my reaction. That's why I said, oh, excellent, let's have a conversation. Exactly. But hang on, the guy on the left, bottom left, he is an atheist?
I think so. At least let me put it this way. He said he wasn't Muslim, if I remember correctly, but he said that he agreed with something I said. And at the time when I was listening, I don't remember something they said that I agreed with. So I was like, at the time, I was like, what is it that he agrees with? Because he said, yeah, if you go and watch it, I'm sure he said it was this guy. And he said something about, yeah, I agree. That's a good point. And I was like, what was the good point? Did I miss it? I was trying to listen. I was working, but I was sitting still and I was doing something, but I was kind of listening in. So maybe I missed it, but I didn't hear anything that I thought was substantial that this guy could have agreed with. So, but I could have missed it, right? All right, let's carry on.
If I let Hijab address Stop Spamming, that's a false analogy, yeah,
okay.
and therefore it's illogical.
This is the interesting part. You need to listen to this carefully, because remember what I said. If somebody comes to you with a box, I did not mention Muslim, I did not mention Allah, I did not mention Islam. I just said if somebody comes to you with a closed box. So I kept it completely neutral, completely innocuous, totally not loaded or anything, just a plain and simple analogy which is valid for anybody. And that is my point that I try to get across. It is always rational to always ask if you are given a claim without any evidence. Always. And you can always reject a claim that is being made without evidence. You can reject it without evidence. And this is the point that I was trying to make here. Now, listen to what Hamza says. He is already projecting, thinking that I am talking about Muslims, that I'm talking about Allah, that I'm misrepresenting them. And this is the cutoff that I'm talking about, that we are talking somehow or using a different language. We are not using the same vocabulary when we are talking to each other. And we need to work on this somehow. Just listen to what he says now.
Because you can't make it the same as God's existence, right? Because what we're saying is that there is a divine entity and all the signs are there, self-evident and explicit signs are there for an entity to be behind the box. For example, if someone knocks on the door, you're not going to say it's irrational to claim there's no one behind the door.
Okay, so like a couple of things here. I think one is your point was not, as I understand it, that the thing in the box created everything. But I think, if I understand, the part of the analogy that you're making is there's something in the box for which we don't know what it is, if it even exists. And that's the part that you are saying. And he's, to my ear at least, misunderstanding that and suggesting that, no, it's not the same, because this creator has got all these signs, and whatever's in the box hasn't got those signs. Well, you never got to that point, and you could have said, well, that thing in the box actually created everything, including the box that it's in. It's not incoherent to say that. You could have had a divine dragon in the box, right? But you didn't add that specific point in. And so,
well, I add this later, but I didn't want to load this in the beginning.
Yeah.
You see, this is the thing, and he's already now making, and look at the body language. Okay, he's on the defensive because he thinks now that I am attacking his God, where he thinks he needs to go into apologetic mode. He needs to go now and defend his God because his God is too weak, can't do it. So he has to go, well, all the signs are there, all the indications are there, which they are not. So he's just sitting there saying, whoa, please don't hurt my God.
Okay, yeah, and I think that's a different argument, right? That the fact that there are signs there, that's the claim that Muslims are making, and they need to justify that. How do they know that? Because the only way they could get that information is from the Quran. So the Quran is a set of claims by which they are then looking out in the world to try and verify, or if they were honest, falsify as well. But that's a separate point, right? I think the one thing that I got from this was that you are saying that there's something there for which we don't know whether it is in fact there. They're going, no, it is there, but that part is a separate argument entirely. But then he gets to this point here, which is this, and it's irony, right? That he says that you're doing a false analogy. He now just said that if somebody comes to the door, let's just hear the last part here.
What you're saying is there's a box. We have.
Let me just go back just for a few seconds here, because let me just see if we get this bit.
Self-evident and explicit signs are there for an entity to be behind the box. For example, if someone knocks on the door, you're not going to say it's irrational to claim there's no one behind the door.
Okay, so that's a false analogy. Why is that a false analogy? Because we know humans exist. We've seen them before. Exactly. It's not even that you need evidence that humans were there. If you came to this planet and you didn't know anything about what evidence was for human beings existing, and you physically saw one, and then one knocked on the door and you opened it, or the person said, hey, I'm a human, and you'd heard that humans had spoken, and you'd seen them, then of course that's entirely rational. That's a mundane claim. The claim that's been made here is that it's a supernatural, or it's an extraordinary claim. And so that is a false analogy to say that you wouldn't say it's human. So I think it's ironic that he's saying that you're making a false analogy, which may or may not be the case because he added extra things on. But then to make a false analogy himself with a human, I think that's mistaken.
And please note, I did not go down this road. I said no. Look, I had 3 things on my list I wanted to take, okay? And those things I did have it. And I was not going to get into an argument. I was not there to argue, because I want them to come on the show and say, here we can argue. Here we have time. We can look at all these things. We can look at the claims. Self-evident. No, Mr. Tsotzes, it's not self-evident. This is your claim that it is self-evident. And this is the point. We can talk about these things here, but in this environment that we had there on Asidawa, we cannot do that. I cannot deliver this in 20 seconds. So that was impossible to do. So I didn't even try.
I know Thunderous is quiet. If there's anything you want to do, Thunderous, then just jump on in. Otherwise, we'll assume that you're listening in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. All right, let's carry on from there.
What you're saying is there's a box, we have no other indication, and therefore we're going to say there isn't a fire-spitting dragon. But that's a false analogy, because that's not what we're saying here is it's more analogous.
This is, again, he doesn't understand it. Now, I always thought I should give Hamza credit for a little bit more, but here, he's being stupid. The thing is that if I say this is not a red table, I'm not saying it's green. And this is exactly what he's saying. I am not making a claim. I'm just saying I do not know what is in this box. And that is why I'm saying, give me your evidence if there really is what you claim it is. I'm not saying it's not this, it's something else. I don't know why he is doing this. He should know better. He should know because he has looked at philosophy and psychology. I know that. So he should know a lot better to say this stupid thing. I mean, this is really dumb.
I guess to someone knocking on the door, giving you their name and saying it's me, it's John, and their ID, right? Which is revelation, which is all the philosophical arguments. So it's a bit of a false analogy,
No,
which I'll let
stop again.
unpack.
Sorry, Rob, but this is exactly the point that I'm trying to make. I mean, he's I don't know why he's doing this. Really, he must have been on an off day. This is exactly what I'm saying. If I'm saying that there's a knock at the door, and I'm saying, well, who's there? And it says, well, I'm the Holy Ghost, and I'm saying, well, excuse me, you'll have to do better than that. If it then says, no, actually, I'm John, and here's my ID and everything, you are providing evidence. That's exactly my point. If somebody is there and providing evidence, then it is irrational to believe something else. But until somebody does not say who is there, I have no reason to believe whatever person is there. I just hear the knock on the door. That's all I have. I don't know who's knocking. So until I get the evidence who it is, I don't know who's there. And he is now providing exactly what I'm asking for, the evidence. So he's refuting himself immediately.
Yeah, well, like I say, I think this is a false analogy between a mundane claim and an extraordinary claim, and then making them the same. Obviously, in his worldview, the evidence is just as compelling as seeing a human being physically, or hearing a human being behind the door. The evidence for their particular God is of the same level in his mind. I obviously think I don't believe that. And I'm sure even Thunderous would agree that the evidence for Allah is nowhere near the same as the evidence for another human being here. It's a mundane claim versus an extraordinary claim, right? And I think
sorry, we are criticizing a different stream, not yours. I don't know if you caught this one. This was hilarious. You would have loved it. Okay, sorry. Yeah,
it was on the same time as Valley Stream was on. So, okay, cool.
But the Tom Jump question about the way you define rationality, defining rationality is actually not the problem here. The problem here is, can atheism, if you're the type of atheist that, for example, would adopt the Darwinian mechanism to explain your rational faculties, or even if you're atheists, can that explain our rational faculties? That's what we're saying.
No, you're not.
Saying define what's rational.
That's not the question. That is not the question. If this would have been the question, the answer would have been different, but you did not ask this question.
What did he ask? What are you referring to?
He just said, does the Darwinian mechanism give you any kind of indication that it's rational to be an atheist?
Yeah, I would point to something like evolutionary reliabilism, right? We have reliable faculties. We're not claiming that we have infallible faculties. The argument against that, which is kind of what he's pointing to, and somebody earlier on, and I think T-Jump did it as well, but somebody earlier on, he's kind of taking, but not really understanding, Alvin Plantinga's argument against naturalism. The ANN, it's ENNA. The evolutionary argument against naturalism, right? And this has got significant rebuttals in the philosophical literature, significant, right? Even to the point where Plantinga acknowledges that if you don't sort of start with certain presuppositions, the argument is kind of weak. So it's not a particularly strong one, and I don't think that that Hamza fully understands it anyway. But I would point to evolutionary reliabilism as one mechanism that can explain this through the Darwinian mechanism. And again, we'd have to go into a deeper discussion on that. I'd have to go look into the philosophical literature. But I think T-Jump was talking about just from the philosophical point of view, but they are trying to ask it from the Darwinian point of view, because they understand that you can make the argument from a philosophical point of view. So they're not trying to challenge that. I hope they at least understand.
But this was not the question. This is my point. If they want to go there, we can go there, but then they need to ask a different question. They cannot ask, is atheism rational? If all they want to know is atheism rational. If they want to know whether the Darwinian mechanism gives you any kind of footing to make that claim, then it's a different question.
You could define it how you want. The English dictionary, a philosophical dictionary, to be honest, I don't give the monkeys. The point is, if you adopt philosophical naturalism as your philosophical worldview, or even atheism in the kind of popular sense that you adopt the Darwinian mechanism to explain your rational faculties, can those things, those ideas, those postulations, can they explain our rational faculties? My argument
Yes,
is
they can.
no. And when you study the philosophy, and even you study the philosophy of biology and even the science itself and the empirical data, you have to say we're going to be skeptical. So as Imran said in the beginning, we have this intuitive idea that yes, we are rational creatures, and we can justify the fact that we believe and we know that we're rational creatures. But under philosophical naturalism or under the Darwinian mechanism, we can't do that. In my view, it would have to lead you to the idea that you'll have to be a classical skeptic.
Hamza, you know me well enough to know that this is exactly. Yeah.
There's something else, or
No, because he's just diverting now. He's going off into philosophical naturalism, which is something that I don't subscribe to anyway. So what is the point? We're not discussing this. Why divert everything now? Why deflect from the original idea? The thing is that, I mean, Islam is really weak. Okay, it's really easy to refute. So they are desperate to get this going into some way. And this is what Rob is always saying, that they are so desperate that they are using Christian apologetics to try and score some brownie points. And it fails every single fucking time. Because exactly what you need to do, you just need to read up a little bit about this and then you get it, and that's end of story. And you refute him. And this is why I have refuted Hamza every single time he has come up with any kind of argument. Because all I need to do is look at his claim, look at the literature, find the facts, refute it. That's how easy it is. But he still does it again and again.
Yeah, on this particular point, there's a lot of philosophical literature. I haven't read all of it, but there's significant rebuttals to this. So it's a case of just reading this up. This is simply not the case, Abdullah.
Yeah.
They can explain rationalism. There's plenty of philosophical literature on it. I would.
He's right.
Invite you to.
Darwinian. What is Darwinian? Faculties can't explain rationalism. You mean, what the hell is this idiot talking about?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a lot of philosophical literature that says that they can. So this is just Hamza's claim. And Abdullah, if you want to present arguments apart from that, and we can show you rebuttals against this. So it's nowhere near as strong as this, and I would suggest. And we have somebody, Detective Inspector Monkfish, who's done a lot more on this than both myself and Stops, and he would point you to the literature as well. And we can get that information. It's not difficult to get hold of. This is not really a significant argument that most people, especially not Christians, push anymore either. There's significant rebuttals to this, right? There's much stronger arguments that they want to bring. This is not one of them. So Hamza is kind of a little bit behind the curve in terms of where the Christians are. They're sort of trying to play catch up, but it's difficult if you don't really understand the argument in its entirety, or indeed the rebuttals to it, and so you sort of get left behind. But let's move on, shall we?
Is not going to fly, because what you're suddenly doing is you're attaching a rucksack and packing millions of things into that rucksack. We're talking about an atheist. An atheist just, I am a person without a God belief. I don't give a continental flying whatever for evolution or Darwin, or I don't care. It does not influence whether or not I believe a God exists. So just leave it. So all I'm saying, it is very rational to ask a question without attributing, because what you are doing now is you are attributing a whole lot of things to this dragon. You are saying this dragon created the world and he is now coming to you. You need to hatch all eggs and you're only allowed to wear green. No, there is no attachment yet. You only have a box.
No, that's
you might see this different. I don't.
Yeah, you can't start that way, because what you're doing is what you accuse theists of doing, which is misrepresenting your position, because we don't believe it's just a box, and we're just making a claim there's something in the box.
It's not about you. It's about me.
That's what we call a straw man. So instead of putting yourself, stop spamming, stop straw manning. Yeah. The point is, we don't believe in just the box. Yeah.
I am not discussing a Muslim. I'm not discussing a theist. I am discussing me, a person without a God belief.
Okay.
I do not attribute anything to this dragon. I'm not saying that the God claim is automatically, it comes complete as a package with the universe and with all the other claims. No, there are 50 million different, well, not quite, 3,000 different gods with all different features, different attributes and everything.
Well,
I cannot go and say, no, they all do the same thing.
I think you should listen to that. Therefore, you're probably in a position now to like, okay, give me some evidence for the divine. That's basically what you're trying to say. And I think
Of course, that is rational.
Brilliant.
No,
Well, you should now listen to Hidayah.
Sorry, were you saying something, or was it you on
I
the
was
video?
saying
I don't know.
no. I'm biting my chair here. I'm not even going to the divine. He doesn't understand that even if I keep it general, any kind of claim must be questioned. And I'm not even going to God's, because there's so many. I'm not even going to his particular favorite God. I'm just keeping it very general. Is atheism rational? That's all. I'm not talking about the Muslim God. I'm only
there was part
talking about the claim.
Yeah, I think though there might have been that you guys were talking past each other a little bit, because
Yes.
they were making the claim that you cannot trust your rational faculties because of the Darwinian mechanism.
Yeah, well, no.
Doesn't, in their view, give you truth-bearing faculties, and of course, like I say, evolutionary reliabilism and other rebuttals are quite significant against this view. So I don't think this is a particularly strong argument, and neither do most philosophers. Or anybody else that's studied this. And maybe we should get Detective Inspector Monkfish, if he's available, to come
That
on
would
and
be
do
great.
a segment on the show, because he's done this far more in depth. He's sent me quite a bit of information. I've not had a chance to look at all of it.
But he doesn't like presenting.
No, but I mean, he could read it off, or we could do it separately, or do it quietly, or whatever the case is. But I think there's kind of, you're talking past each other a little bit here. You want to talk about, is it rational? He's going, hang on a moment. You can't even be talking about rational, because you've got to give us a reason for why you think as an atheist you are rational. And you're going, hang on a moment. I'm talking about whether, the belief in the box is rational. So I think there's kind of a little bit of, you're not quite talking to each other as much as you could have been.
Okay, but now to avoid this in future, how do you do this? If the question is atheism rational? Okay, what I'm understanding now, what I should have done in the beginning is say, okay, define atheism, define rational. What is it that you're actually asking, and why are you asking the question? What kind of answer are you expecting? Maybe that would have been a good approach as well.
Yeah, like I say earlier on in the video, earlier on in the panel, somebody else asked, what do you define as irrational? And Hamza, if you go watch the video much earlier on before you came on, he said that it would be irrational to deny something that is either self-evident or is demonstrably the case, or words to that effect. I don't want to misrepresent, words to that effect, right?
Right.
And no, that wouldn't be irrational. That would be unreasonable. To be irrational, you would have to show that there's a contradiction. Somebody not believing something that they don't believe is true, you believe it's true, and you think there's good reasons and they don't, doesn't mean they're irrational. It just means that you could argue they're unreasonable, but that's a much softer claim than one that says that they're irrational, because there you need to demonstrate some sort of contradiction.
Okay. And I didn't catch that because, remember, I was frantically swapping accounts in the background.
All right, let's move on.
Give you a brilliant summary of the contingency argument. Is it all right?
No, I've already destroyed that. That doesn't work with me. I've already done that.
Here, maybe listen. Stand in the possibility that you could be wrong, and stand in the possibility that Hijab could articulate the contingency argument in a powerful way.
Look, if you want to talk about details, come on the gin and tonic and we can talk about the details. But today, here and now, it is only about, is atheism rational? It is not about, is contingency argument stupid or not, or dishonest or circular, or just another version of the infinite regression. This is not the question. The question is atheism rational? And I have just made the point that absolutely, yes, it is. Can anybody refute me? No.
Okay, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
How do you define rationality?
How do I define rationality?
So,
Rob, just pause quickly. Stop, please. This is, I mean, he's sitting there and he's thinking all the time. Okay, how can I catch this? How can I catch this? How can I catch this? And now he thinks he's got an angle where he can use the same thing that he always does, which I have already told him that he does, but he cannot help himself. He cannot find anything else. There's no way that he can argue. There is nothing that he can say. There's nothing that he can refute. So he has to go and do exactly what I told him earlier on that he will do, and that is now go to semantics and go, how do you define rational, which I've just done. So I don't know why they have him on the panel. Really, I don't understand what he's doing there.
Yeah, when I listen to this, now you guys go off on the long grass here, and I
Yeah.
don't think hijab actually helped in this panel at all. You know, if it had stuck with Tortoise or Imran, for example, that probably would have been better. I think hijab was unnecessary here and superfluous. And now you go into a long spiel. We'll deal with it to the best of our ability, but now it's sort of it diverts off here.
Yeah, we can
instead
actually,
of
because the rest is stupid. Because this is just now his clown act. There's nothing useful in this. It's just
well, let's go
that
through it
he-
anyway, because I think we can point out where.
Well, one thing that people need to listen to here, because this I think is the important part. The thing is, he cannot defend Islam. He cannot defend anything. He can't refute my refutations. So what he does is he tries to turn it around. He tries to now get atheists to where Muslims are, which is that we are faith-based, that we are this. So he's trying to make atheists look bad as a group, as a concept. And he says this is your worldview, which is ridiculous. But this is what he's trying to do. So listen to what he does now, how he is trying to twist my claim that it is rational, where I've provided evidence, where I've shown why, where the irrational, the opposite, would make no sense, where I've already done all this. Listen now how he tries to turn this around to make mine a claim that I need to now provide evidence for. Do you want me to repeat what I just said?
Yeah, you not only repeat it, but get it from a source.
I've just taken different dictionaries and they all say that it's an adjective. It's
Just give me
rational.
one. Give
Okay,
me one of
adjective
those.
based on clear thought and reason, logical or sensible, of
Right.
sound mind, sane.
So what? So how do you define reason?
I don't define reason. I don't know what
No,
reason.
rationality and
Reason
reason.
is a way of thinking, is a line that I am following in a thinking process.
Sorry,
Should I repeat everything?
is that? No, I'm just asking. Where is this? Are you reading this from a dictionary? Yeah.
No. I just
All
said
right,
I
can you-
copied a couple of words from a dictionary to know what I'm talking about.
He has a
No,
script.
no. But when you look at it, when you look at
I
the
don't have
when
a
you look at the
script.
when you look at the dictionary definitions, they're a little bit out of line, and especially even encyclopedic definitions, they're a little bit out of line of what you're saying. So let's get that cleared up first, because reason is that which
No,
usually, has explanatory power, is
No,
justification.
that's nonsense. Stop this, please. Come on, get out of this.
Okay, no problem. It's nonsense. Yeah.
Rob, just
It's
wait.
not. It's not about.
Can you see the background now? What Sabur did, he did not completely mute his microphone. He is getting a call from someone who is saying, "Who the fuck is this on the panel at the moment?" And I could hear him through the microphone saying, "This is stop spamming," and explaining who I am. And this is why he is looking quite embarrassed, because he thinks somebody is telling him, "Listen, do something. This is not helping. Get him off the panel." Because he's explaining to him who I am. The other funny thing is that Imran Hussein thinks that I have a script. Because I don't know why, they think that everything that is scripted is provided by the Mossad or something like this. This is why he's saying, yeah, you see, he's on a script. How the hell can I be on a script if I don't know what is going on? I'm not doing anything. All I've done is I've written down, I think, 10 words, which is rational and irrational. That's all I've done, just so that I know what irrational actually is and what irrational is. That's all I've done. That's it.
Okay.
It's not about logical inference, no.
It is about, is atheism rational? We
No,
are
no,
not
hold on,
discussing reason.
but-
We are not discussing
Yeah,
any kind of explanatory
we are,
power.
we
There
are,
is no
we are.
explanatory power. If I ask a question,
But if you don't
is
mind,
it rational
Yeah.
to believe God exists?
if you don't mind, just to come back on what you said it's not about reason, but right. If you look in the dictionary, the word rationality is that which pertains to reason.
No, it doesn't. It's
So
not.
you can't talk about rationality without talking about reason. Are you with
I
me?
can do that without having to go now and discuss reason. The thing is,
No, we have
you're
to know what reason is.
deflecting. I don't want to
Because if we
deflect.
don't- if rationality is all about, it's pertaining to reason.
It's
So we
not.
need to know what reason is to see, okay, when we say reason, does atheism fit the category or not? So when we
Okay,
say, okay, when we look at, like, for example, let me just give you some sources, right? Since you haven't provided any.
No,
If you look at, for
I don't.
example,
Hijab, I'm not going to go there. Listen to what
why
I
not?
say once again. and please don't misrepresent me. Hamza has just said this is something that I don't
I'm
like.
I'm not saying anything
What
about
I
you said.
said is based on clear thought and reason,
Yeah, but
logical
that's not the
or
dictionary
sensible,
definition.
of sound mind, sane. All right, I've given you
Where'd you
several
get that
things, not
definition
just
from?
reason.
Where'd you get the definition from?
These are different dictionaries.
Like, where does it say clear thought?
It doesn't.
I'm just not
Okay,
sure the point of this.
the
This
thing
is
is,
kind of like red herring. This is laboring a point that is really trivial, right? So rationality is the ability to have inferences from the laws of logic, and reason is putting that into practice, right? The mind is using rationality, and its foundation is the laws of logic. I think, you know, that you all agree that you have it. So this was, to me, like you went off in the long grass. He can challenge your basis for rationality, that he can do, right? But to go into this seemingly, to me, trivial points about what is reason and rationality, since you both are using it, unless you were using it incorrectly, you could say, okay, stop spamming, you're using it incorrectly, here's what it really is. But if you both agree that you're using it, and really his claim is that you don't have a good reason to be using it, or you can't justify the use of it, that's separate. But this was just off in the long grass.
I agree totally. Yeah, exactly. Do you want me now to find where I found this, the dictionary name of where I found this?
Yeah. For example, yeah, exactly. If I say to you, look, if you look at the Cambridge Dictionary,
No, I don't have time for that now.
No,
I just went to different dictionaries and I just copy pasted some words in here to know what I'm talking about.
Like you're getting it a little bit, with all due respect.
I think the one thing, Stops, you could have done here definitely is ask him what's the point of this, which you might have done, or you will do. But I think jumping in here again, it's easy for us to do it afterwards, right? Everybody can be an armchair expert, but in the heat of the moment, it's not always so easy, as those of us who have engaged in discussions know. But I think one thing is we can always improve our skills. Even you with many years experience, there's always something we can do even better. Let's put it that way. And I think here would have been the opportunity to go, okay, do we agree on what reason and rationality is? Do you agree that we're both using it? Great. Okay. So do you think that I'm using it incorrectly? And if so, why? What's your source for that? And then let's move on, because this is not helping us in any way. And to me, and I've spoken a lot to Hijab when I used to be in Speaker's Call, I've watched a lot of his videos. One of his tactics, because I pay attention to the tactics, I've heard many of the arguments before, but I listen to what do people say and how do they respond in a conversation. And if you pay close attention, with Hijab, one of his favorite tactics is a red herring. In other words, you're having a conversation, he will bring up a side point or an irrelevant point or a trivial point, and then labor that point to move away from the main point. And
that's what
I don't see any good value in this, other than to have the gullible viewers listening go, wow, he's saying something substantial, when in fact he's saying something trivial and he's laboring a trivial point. And this to me is irrelevant, and it's a bad tactic to use. And he does this a lot, by the way. So if you look at any of the other ones, and again, if people have got videos, bring it and we'll go through it. Well, I'm quite happy to go through it, because then we've got the time to do this, and we can look at what are the tactics, where's the red herrings, especially with Skydive Phil, right? When I started to do it there you could see it was so plain as day. To me, this is clear here as well, but I think it would be even clearer if we show it in other videos. So this is one tactic, and listen to when he doesn't follow the point and goes off on a tangent. That's a red herring, and that's exactly what he's done here in my view.
Like, you're getting it a bit confused. But let me give you an example, right? If you go to Britannica right now, well, come on, let's have a conversation. We're using sources to kind of allow the water to go through the pipes, Otherwise, it's just going to be like a semantic game. If we're saying, if we go to Britannica Encyclopedia and you write the word reason down, which is a respected encyclopedia, it's gonna
try rational. I didn't give you the definition for reason.
But like I
gave you the definition for rational. So stop waffling, please.
But listen, rationality is that which pertains to reason.
No, I didn't say that.
No, that's what the dictionary says.
No, it's not. Right. Now show me a dictionary that says that.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, let's see if there's anything more that happens, because this backwards and forwards really was a trivial thing. This is what I'm telling him now. This is exactly what because now I've had it. Now I'm telling him straight out what he's doing. To get your definition, and now we discuss your definition.
No,
I don't care for that. The question is atheism rational? I've showed yes, I know, it is. And what you're doing now is you're saying, I want to talk about reason.
No, but we need to kind of get this right, if you don't mind, because if our whole question is atheism rational, and I'm giving you definitions, both from encyclopedic sources and dictionary sources, of what the word means in the English language, and you're rejecting it. So I don't know how to continue unless you want me to switch language. Am I
You can
speaking
switch
your foreign
language. I'm
tongue?
fine with doing that. But the point is, it doesn't make
Am I
sense
speaking
to
your
now
foreign tongue?
speak about reason only. You look.
No,
You've got an
what's your
agenda.
name
Okay,
again?
you have
What's your name
something
again?
about reason, and you want to go
What?
to the reason.
Spamming.
No, man. Look, sorry. If you go into the dictionary, we're speaking an English language. Rationality is that which pertains to reason. That's what it means. So we need to know what reason is to know what rationality is.
Rob,
Well,
will you stop
You're
here?
stopping us. You're sorry.
Do you know of any dictionary that says rationality pertains to reason? Have you ever
I've
heard
not
of it?
looked up the definition like that. I mean, we can quickly bring it up, right?
There is no dictionary, because I went afterwards, just to make sure. I have not been able to find a single dictionary that says what is a rationality is what pertains to reason. And the thing is, what I'm telling him, I can't remember exactly where. I thought I'm doing it now. He has an agenda. Oh no, I did say he has an agenda. He wants to go to reason because now he wants to run something around that reason, and we will see just now why he's doing that. But there is no dictionary that says rationality is that what pertains to reason. That's bullshit. He's making it up. It's exactly what you're saying. It's just a red herring.
Sorry, but you're stopping this conversation from progressing, because what you want to do is you don't want us to tell you that actually, in order for you to to use reason and rationality, then you have to allow for whatever it is the subject of information that you're, or subject of investigation, to allow for a logical inference. Now, my question is, if logical inference and reason are connected with each other, okay? If reason entails logical inference, how does atheism allow us to make any kind of logical inference?
It doesn't.
That's a fair question.
It doesn't.
Did you say it doesn't? Or
Yes.
were you saying that on the video, or you're saying it now?
No, I'm saying it on the video.
Oh, okay. I'm not sure that I'd agree with you there. Maybe you can give me your thought processes. Because his question is, how does atheism allow you to do that? Okay, so because that's
No.
like a very poor question.
The question is, how does it do that? It allows me to do that, but it doesn't. Because all that my not having a God belief does is it rejects the proposition that gods exist. I am not making a claim. I am not able, as an atheist, as somebody without a God belief, to make any kind of proposition or counter proposition or counter in any way an explanation for this. All I'm saying is, I reject your proposition. I do not use this from a sheer non-God belief point of view to make any kind of inference, to make any kind of proposal, to make any kind of claim, to make any kind of justification or falsification. This in itself is not available in not having a God belief. If we're talking about a person, this is again, it goes down to my old point. If you're talking about a vegetarian, for example, there's only one single issue that this person has: no red meat. If you talk about anything else to a vegetarian, you have to go talk to the person and not the vegetarian. And there I'm perfectly fine to do this. But we're only talking about one single point here, and that is no God belief. And what he is doing is he is trying to lower the confidence in atheists as a general, because he says atheism cannot provide any kind of proposal, any kind of justification, any kind of falsification. That is what he's trying to do. But that is not the point. You cannot do that. You can go to a person and say, well, it's incomplete what you are thinking. Cool, I accept that. Because I'm not a philosopher, I haven't thought this through. Absolutely, there could be huge holes in my reasoning. Absolutely, I agree with that. I totally concede this point. And I can argue this and I can think about it later, but at the moment I might not have an answer for that. But at the moment, the only point that I am addressing is the non-God belief. And not having a God belief correctly does not provide any kind of justification for this statement. It doesn't. All I can say is it is
let me
not
phrase it a different
irrational
way
to do
then.
that.
Yeah, I think we need to discuss this a bit more, at some point. But I think let's phrase it this way. His view is and he's not saying this, right, but he's saying it indirectly. So his view is that if you do not start with God, who gave you logical faculties or rational faculties, then you're not in a position to, as an atheist or any atheist, is his claim, although he'd have to demonstrate that, right? He's not making the argument for it. He hasn't provided the argument for it. Tsortzis tried to do a version of it, but he's not doing that. But essentially what he's saying is, if we reverse it so that for you to kind of see the other perspective, I guess, is he's saying that, hey, if you don't believe in God, then you are not justified in invoking rationality or using reason, because you as an atheist don't have a basis for claiming that those things are, he's not using these words, but I'm saying it for him, reliable or work. And you are saying, and what you, as I understand it, what your view is, hey, atheism is simply the assertion about a single claim, but there are certain entailments. There are certain things that entail from that. One is that there's no God, right? That we all have to agree on. If you're an atheist, we do not believe in a God. And if we don't believe in a God, what they are saying is, okay, then you have to give a justification for rationality and the ability to use reason, which there are naturalistic and other arguments for, right? But you are understanding him to say, okay, well, hey, atheism, or you're taking the view that atheism is the single position on a single claim, and that's got nothing to do with rationality. But I think, and this wasn't made clear between the two of you, is that, okay, so atheism entails not having a God belief. His view is that you can only have rationality. It can only be justified or explained or accounted for by a God. You, Mr. Atheist, have to account for it some other way. You either can't do that, or how do you do that? And that's where I think the two of you were missing each other.
Okay, and this is exactly the point that I'm trying to make. If we're talking about atheist, in other words, none with God, then this is the basis, this is the foundation. A lot of things are built on top of this foundation. One of the things is, how do you get to rationality? How are you justified in using it? Those are all secondary questions. But the foundation, right at the bottom, the rock, the bedrock, is the fact that there is no God belief. And if you are talking about bedrock, then you should stay there. You cannot go to the 102nd floor, which hasn't been built yet. So what I'm saying is, you need to start building at the bottom. You can't jump from the bottom and then to the top and saying, yeah, but how do you do that if you haven't built the bottom? And that is exactly my point. You need to start building at the bottom. Exactly what you have done now. You've built this.
I think the things that will be good for us is to just get the arguments down in a very concise way, and that might involve speaking to Detective Inspector Monkfish and others, because this isn't a particularly difficult thing to argue from our point of view. We just need to have it clear and concise in a point of view, because there is, like you say, some entailments, and he's just saying, you guys tell me how you can justify this, right? And you are saying, but hang on, I don't have to do that, because all I'm saying to you is that atheism is the disbelief in a God. But his whole point is, well, you can't even say the word disbelief. You can't even invoke that unless you have a way to account for it or justify that what you are saying and doing in your worldview is coherent. That's what he's trying to get to.
Exactly.
And if you
I always have to make this detour.
Just said, God gave it to me, right?
Yeah.
But I think let's just see if we can finish off. We are getting close to 10, but let's see if we can finish off. So I think there was a lot of talking past you. You were making a point on a single claim. He's saying try and justify the inference that atheism has, which is the disbelief in a God, and therefore what is your fund? Essentially, he's not very concise in this, but somebody else could have just said to you, what's your foundation for rational? How do you account or justify or explain that you have rational faculties? That's the kind of argument they're trying to go down here.
Yeah.
But he's already shopped.
And this is the thing, because at the end of the day, if somebody pushes me, I will say, look, these gods don't exist. All right, but that's the 102nd floor. I can't just jump from the foundation all the way there. I need to expose this slowly, bit by bit, and explain how I'm getting there at the end of the day.
Yeah, but before you even explain that, right, you're explaining your thinking process, your rational process. They're asking you to explain how you could justify the rational process. How is it that you come by this ability to do what you do as an atheist? That's what they're asking you.
Okay, and that is biology.
And I think you are thinking that you have to explain the whole process of how you get to a, why you don't believe in the God, and they're a step before that. So that's where I think you sort of talk past each other.
Okay, that's also true. Doesn't.
Okay, so it's not rational then, is it?
What? You are going from
Okay,
me asking a
What do you mean? What you just said it yourself? It doesn't. So wait, hold on. What's what about that? I think you're basically what you're doing is acting. I can see the performance in what you're doing. Yeah, because I'm an actor myself, as the people know.
I know
I'm a
that.
very good
This is all rhetoric.
And you know what?
We all know that.
I'm a performer. You know, I'm not going to give me a bath.
I mean, this is all just rhetoric, and yes, he is a performer, and we've said this all along. Nobody really takes hijab seriously. I mean, you could have a conversation with Hamza, for example, but nobody
that would have
really
been more
takes
fruitful.
nobody
Yeah.
apart from some of the gullible Muslims takes hijab seriously. There's a lot of rhetoric and very little substance there, and he's admitting himself. He's also claiming you're doing the same thing. But this is just waffle at the moment. So let's just see if there's anything left here before we get to the end.
BAFTA soon, yeah. But before they give me the BAFTA, and before they give me the Oscar, and before they put me on the shows, and the Channel 4 actually got in contact with me, I should tell you that, and they tried to. Interesting, yeah? But before that happens, let me tell you something. Yeah? Right now, you just admitted, with all due respect, you said that it doesn't. Yeah, that's what you just said. It doesn't. It doesn't give you any logical possibility for inference. So, by extension, therefore, what has atheism got to do with rationality? What has it got to do with it? You're saying is atheism rational? You're saying it is. That's okay. So prove it.
I think hijab.
Sorry, were you saying something?
Yeah, I said, well, the funny thing is, atheism has nothing to do with rationality. You don't need to be an atheist to be rational, but it's rational to be an atheist. He's getting very confused now because he's getting so excited.
So just to get hijab, I think what he's saying is
Homo sapiens. We need to get him on. So
Sabur, can I ask something quickly?
Everyone
Just a quick question. I've just got a question for him.
Allow him to finish. With all due respect, if you're saying atheism rational, and your answer is yes, that's a claim. Sorry, you want to call it whatever you want to call it. Is atheism? So your claim is atheism is rational. Rational is that which pertains to reason. Reason is that which allows for logical inference. My question is, how does atheism allow for any kind of logical inference? You have to answer that. It's your claim.
Can I make a point of clarity here, hijab? Yeah. Well, I think what Simon is saying is that the rejection of the theist claim is a rational rejection, but that doesn't now follow that atheism now can give you now explanatory scope and power of all the other things in our lives and what makes us human. So there is
he gets it. That's exactly the point. Hamza gets it. He understands it, and he even translates it for hijab. But hijab doesn't want this. This is not on his scope at the moment. He wants to lower the confidence in atheists, and he doesn't even care if his own panel member tells him, "Listen, you fool, you don't get it."
And that's why I think it would have been better for you to go backwards and forwards with Hamza rather than with hijab, because hijab is red herring. There's a lot of rhetoric, and it wasted a lot of panel time. And hopefully they won't have him on again, or if they do, if I go on, I'm just going to say basically, there's no point in me speaking to hijab. There's rhetoric, there's red herrings. He's not somebody that I take seriously. So let me have a conversation with Hamza, maybe even Imran, and especially Imran, right? Because he made some claims early in this thing that I really want to challenge, right? But I think hijab is just there as like window dressing, really. So and it doesn't add anything, and there's a lot of rhetoric and a lot of waste of time. So for me, he's like superfluous here. It's like you've got a set dressing, and you put the curtains up. He's the curtains, whereas you've got Hamza and the other guys. They're part of the actual set that you need.
There's such a difference, Habibi. So I think
no. I don't buy that. I don't buy this nonsense. All that's happening now is that if you're going to make the claim that atheism is rational, you're going to have to justify that claim with all due respect. If that's your claim, atheism is rational. Rational is that which pertains to reason. Reason is that which pertains to logical inference. Therefore, you need to tell me how atheism is connected to logical inference in any way, shape, or form, in an explanatory sense or a refutational sense. If you can't do that, then you can't claim that atheism is rational.
Or, just to make it a bit more specific, or what they'll have to do is to show why their rejection is rational, or why they don't.
That's reputational, right? So if they have reputational scope, then that's fine. But right now, there's nothing being provided. By the way, the analogy of the box with the dragon.
He's a false
I mean,
man.
and then I reject 360 gods and so on. This is an embarrassing. Sorry, with all due respect, analogy. He asked the question. He said, "What's in the box?" Yeah, we're just asking what's in the box. But a question is different to a claim. The claim that's being made here today is that atheism is rational. You can't conflate a question which is interrogative with a claim which is declarative. Yeah, these are simple linguistic propositions. If you say that if you're saying that there isn't an X in the box, that's a claim. If you're saying X is
No, he's not saying that though. He's misrepresenting, right?
Yeah.
Somebody's bringing a box to you and they're saying something's in there. You're saying, hey, I don't believe that. I don't have any evidence for that. Whatever the claim is that's in the box, I don't know what that is. And if you're making an extraordinary or a supernatural claim as opposed to a mundane, if they said, hey, I've got a rock in the box, well, you could say, sure, I mean, that's possible. The likelihood of there being a rock in the box as opposed to God or in the analogy, the dragon, what's the chances of it being a rock as opposed to a dragon? Massively more probable that it's a rock than a dragon, right? Why? Because a rock is a mundane thing. A dragon is an extraordinary thing. We've never seen them. We don't have good evidence for them. And the whole evidence thing here is they think the evidence is overwhelming. We don't. But the point is that there is a mundane versus an extraordinary claim. And so it's not as easy as just saying, well, whatever's in the box there, you're just rejecting. You're not rejecting. You're saying, giving me evidence for that, because you, Mr. Whoever brings me the box, is telling me there's something extraordinary in this box. You haven't opened the box. You haven't given me good reasons to believe it. Therefore, I am justified in rejecting it. And I agree with that. I'm not agnostic about something like that. Somebody brings me a box, says there's a mini invisible dragon. I'm rejecting that claim until and if there's good reasons to believe it. I'm not going, I don't know. I think I'm justified in saying an extraordinary claim I'm not being agnostic on. You haven't given me good reasons and evidence. I'm rejecting the claim. That does not mean I say it is impossible there's a dragon. It just means that I do not believe the claim. I reject the claim. I disbelieve your claim. That's it.
But the thing is, I'm not even sure whether hijab is just being like plain obtuse here, or whether he is intentionally misunderstanding this or pretending like he doesn't understand this. Because
I'm not sure that he does.
How can you do that?
I think Hamza does, but I don't think he does. I think he's, or at least he's misunderstanding your point or whatever, because I think he's certainly misrepresented it there. It's not like you're saying that there's nothing in the box or whatever the case is. You're just disbelieving the claim that somebody else brought you a box with something extraordinary inside there. That's
exactly. So why doesn't he understand that? Or is he deliberately not understanding it? This is the question. Is he just being dishonest, or is he being stupid?
Yeah, I'm leaning towards the view that he doesn't have a good understanding of some of these concepts, especially in a live discussion. So that's my personal view.
Not a good understanding of is the same as my stupid. This is the difference between you and me. You're so fucking polite.
Right, let's see if we can finish up here. I don't know how much longer it is. I don't think it's too long.
Claim. Yeah. Now, if you say, for example, the dragon's not in the box, that's a claim. But is that a falsifiable claim? No, you can actually try and.
Okay, you never said the dragon wasn't in the box. You said, no. I don't believe, or words to the effect of, or your inference was, I do not believe the claim that there is a dragon in the box.
He doesn't
understand. But that's not the same as saying
is.
There is no dragon in the box. This is, if you stop and think about this for a minute, this is not difficult to grasp, right? But he's not the only one. I've spoken to other Muslims like this as well, who don't grasp this. If you say I disbelieve the claim, that does not mean you're saying that it's the case that there's no dragon. You are saying I do not believe there is a dragon. That's not the same as saying
machine,
there is no dragon in the box. It's not synonymous with that. You disbelieve the claim.
Let me quickly run something by everybody. What I have done is I've come up with this model where I'm saying, okay, the table plus red equals red table. The table plus nothing is equal to table. So if I say table plus red equals red table, saying table plus nothing is not saying it's a green table. And the same thing is true for a theist. A person plus a God belief equals theist. A person plus nothing is just a person. It's not a person who does X, Y, and Z. it just stays the person. This is the point. I don't know. Is this a,
you
a,
and
a
I,
better
obviously,
analogy?
you and I kind of disagree on this, and maybe we should talk about it in Discord and stuff, because I do think that one of the things that would be helpful is for you to use like the philosophical terms, because when you use those terms the way you have there, nobody else really understands that. So it's almost like you're making a private language argument there that other people, I understand it now because you and I have spoken about it, but most people wouldn't. And it's not the way that it's talked about in philosophy or generally in these sort of comments. So it makes it difficult to discuss it with you because you're using your analogies and your ideas as opposed to
that's why I'm asking if
more
people
recognized.
understand
And I
this.
think if you can use the more recognized one, which, and find the way that it fits best for you, then at least people will, I think, better understand it. Because at the moment there is a difficulty in understanding what you mean. Because for me, if you have been exposed to the claim, in this case, that Allah exists, and you say, I disbelieve that, there is an entailment. You disbelieve it. You are making the positive claim that you disbelieve that Allah exists. And now you need to provide reasons why, which you can
That's
do,
why I don't use that,
but they're not even asking that, right? They're asking the prior question, which is, how could you even make sense of this in a world that does not have Allah in? So they're asking that question initially.
Okay, I thought maybe I found a more easy to understand analogy. I haven't. Okay, next, finish.
Try and falsify that. You can try and falsify that through the fact that there isn't a Tyrannosaurus Rex in the box. You can deny the or a dragon. You can try and falsify that. But by you falsifying it, you have refutational power. But in this case, our question is now, with God, the explanation, the necessary being, the independent one, how can you refute that? Because you've heard all the arguments before, so you need to show us how you're going to refute them. Instead of telling us about bots.
We need to give Stop Spamming a chance to respond, and then I'm going to move on to Homo sapiens or Homo sap or whatever it is, and you can respond to whatever he says, or if you don't want to, it's fine.
Okay. And like I said, we're very open to have any kind of discussion on this on our show where we have more time. Now, the point that I'm making all the time now, the answer to the question, is atheism rational? The answer is yes, 100% and totally. If now somebody goes and says, yeah, but hang on, if rational, then this also can mean this and can mean this, and then a roundabout way, suddenly this is made into a different claim. This is not the way that it works. And thank you, Hamza, for the I don't know, do I call it interpretation or translation or whatever? That is exactly the point. I am not allowing this to go into a claim that I am making. If you want to show me that this is irrational, cool, you can do it, but you can't. You can never show that it is irrational to go and find and ask a question, is this really
I haven't
true?
made the claim that it's irrational. Hold on, sorry. You said that atheism is rational. That's your claim. I haven't said
that is my claim, and I said,
irrational.
if you want to show that it's irrational, go ahead, be my guest.
No. It's not. I'm not saying that. You said atheism is rational. That's a claim. Can you prove it, please?
Yes, it is very rational. It is logical and sensible to ask somebody what is actually happening, to ask for evidence before accepting something without evidence.
You're not getting this question. Atheism is a lack of belief in God. No. If atheism is defined as a lack of belief in a deity or God,
no, it's not.
That's the problem.
I just told you, I'm without a God belief.
Yeah, this is where you guys sort of talk past each other. And this is where I think definitely if we can tweak the language there so you're both talking the same thing. When you say without a God belief, he translates that. And I would too, if I didn't know you, to the view that you lack a belief in God. Now, if you don't believe a God exists, which is my position, then that's fine. But I think when you say without a God belief, that's not easy even for other people. Forget about hijab. To understand. So it's like, how do you better phrase that so that other people can understand you? Because you know what you mean, but I think it's using common language that other people can understand as well. Otherwise, this will always be a back and forth where people talk past each other.
It's not a lack. I'm not.
Sorry? What is it?
I am not lacking anything. It is not a lack of a belief. It is, I am a person without a God belief.
Yeah, it's the same thing. Without means lacking in.
Okay, no, Homo sapiens is waiting.
Okay, we'll leave it there. I have to say, I do agree with him in the normal way. I understand what you mean, but to me, those things are synonymous. So it's a case of is there a way for you to more accurately say that in different words. Because if you think you're a person without a God belief, and he says, well, that's the same as lacking a God belief, most people will think that is the case. So I think it's, how can you phrase this in such a way that you go, okay, that's not what I mean, here's what I mean, and use different language. I think if that could be the case, then it would solve that sort of difficulty that people
But
have.
how can anybody think that lack is the same as not having?
Because, okay, so if you lack any water, is that the same as not having water?
Sorry, say again?
I would say that if somebody says to me, I lack any water, I'm out in the desert, I lack water, I'm going to translate that to mean that they have no water.
No, that's
And
wrong.
if we just change the word water to God, I lack God, I don't believe, or there is no God.
I'm sorry,
think-
Rob, you're wrong. Lack means it would improve my situation if I didn't. That's lack.
That means that it's not present for you.
No. I don't understand.
I think then it's
Rob,
a case
come
of,
on, think. If I say lack is, it would improve if I did. Okay, that's lack. If I lack something, I can improve my situation by not lacking this.
I think let's talk about it on Discord, because I think
But we've done this. I've showed you the definition. I've showed you what this is. Lacking is always that you have to improve your situation to not have this lack. So
I
at
don't
the
think
end
it's
of
that
the
you
day,
improve your
yes,
situation.
it is not having that, but it's not a lack. In other words, I don't lack a belief. It's not, it would improve my situation if I did have that belief.
Yeah, but lack and improve your situation is not necessarily synonymous. You could lack something,
That
and,
is
and if you
synonymous.
had it, it could make your situation worse, right? So it's not a case that it has to make your situation
Rob, you're
better.
wrong. Sorry. No, lack is always something that you are missing.
Yes, but the fact that you're missing something doesn't mean that it's good or bad. It just means that it's missing, right? It could be good, it could be bad. You don't know.
How can, Rob, come on. If I'm missing water, that means I don't have enough water. If I'm missing belief, that means I don't have enough belief.
No, it just means that you don't have a belief. Hey, if I lack a
No,
spider bite,
Rob, this is exactly the point. There is another element to the word lack. It is not only not having, it is also it would improve if you did.
okay, we need to look that up. I'm not convinced
did
that
last
the
time.
lack necessarily
We actually looked
entails
at it last
would
time.
be beneficial.
Okay, doesn't matter. So this now stops. I don't know. There are a lot of comments now being made, and how I was finished, how I was totally destroyed, and things like that, which I wasn't. So yeah.
Yeah, let's call it there. I think Thunderous
Yeah.
has unfortunately left us at the moment. Maybe he got disconnected, and it's run after 10, so he might have had to leave us. So should we do a hadith of the day? I think the summary is that I don't think this format worked very well. There's too many of them there,
Yeah.
and I think if it's the same people next time, it's a case of selecting somebody or asking, can you speak to, or whoever, it's a lesson for all of us. Can I speak to Hamza on this point? Can I have a conversation with Hamza, or can I have a conversation with Imran, or whatever the case is? I think that would have been good.
Yeah, but they didn't want that. Remember that before I came on, they had this thing, you can ask a question and then all four panelists will give their opinion and that's it. And then they changed it because I said, listen, you're putting people to sleep, stop this. And then Hijab came because I triggered him and I said, great, now let's have a discussion. And that's when this whole thing started. So that was already an improvement. I don't know what happened afterwards. I left it. I wasn't really interested in it anymore. So I haven't even watched the rest. I don't even know what happened. So, yeah.
All right, cool. So, guys, let us know in the chat if you want us to do more of these things. In particular, hopefully one where we can look at the Quran and the claims in the Quran, because I think we can bring Thunderous more into that one. This was more sort of, defending atheism, and he wouldn't have a lot necessarily to say. So maybe we can, if you know of any videos where there's been claims made about the Quran and there's an argument that's been put forward, then I think that will be useful, because then we can include Thunderous and we can look up the Quran immediately, right? So I think, because these arguments, they're philosophical type arguments, and then we have to go into a lot of evidence for that, and that's very time consuming if we're going to do it on the fly. We could do a video, we could do a whole show just on one particular point, but if we're refuting it here, I just want to give you a sense of where I think, at least from my view, where the apologists were using certain tactics, in particular hijab, obviously. So,
yeah. All right, Hadith of the week. It's Bukhari 877, number 594. The Prophet said, Allah puts an angel in charge of the uterus, and the angel says, "O Lord, it is semen. O Lord, it is now a clot. O Lord, it is now a piece of flesh." Following the Quran, of course. And then, if Allah wishes to complete its creation, the angel asks, "O Lord, will it be male or a female? A wretched evildoer or a blessed doer of good? How much will his provisions be? What will his age be?" So all that is written while the creature is still in the mother's womb. Oops.
on that
Okay, I'm
note,
not going to comment this. I think there's so much wrong with this thing. I think we all know that.
well, we've got another one here that we could always do, right? There was another video we were going to do, but this one obviously took a lot longer. So thanks if you followed along. Give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed us doing a deconstruct. If you want more of the deconstruct sort of videos, because this month is about Muslim apologists and their tactics and how do they operate. I'll look for something for next week as well. And if you want to join us on Discord after this, then by all means do so. Dave has put the Discord link in the chat at the bottom there. Hopefully it's the same one that we use. It's actually a slightly different one. I think this one here, I could be mistaken. This one, I think, takes you straight to the after show, the voice after show, which is where we're going to be on.
The MAB.
But either one of those will take you to our server. And then if you're not sure,
the
just
MAB, exactly. This is the one I have here.
Text chat and we'll help you out. So thanks very much, Stops, for that. Thank you to everybody who's watching.
And please join us, because Rob is now going to teach me how to speak proper English when discussing this with theists. You don't want to miss this one. Bye, guys. See you next week.